Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Renee Bryce Laporte from the Aspen Institute. I am a senior associate here at Aspen, and welcome. This is one of a series of rural family economic success webinars that we hold, sometimes known as RuFES. These webinars are open to anyone in the RuFES Action Network, your colleagues and friends, and anyone else who wants to participate. Please do ask your friends to participate at any time. It's likely that we will actually have at least one more of these before the end of the year. As of yesterday, we had more than 100 people who had registered for this webinar. Some of them are individuals, and some of them are groups of people together. Actually, as of about an hour ago, there were about 114 folks registered, so thank you, everyone, for participating. Each one of these webinars is recorded and archived. We post it up on our website so that you and others can watch and listen to the webinar at your leisure. If you've listened to it already, you can listen again. If folks haven't been able to make it, we'll have it posted for them. Okay, so today's topic is the Earned Income Tax Credit. Earned Income Tax Credit has actually been with us for a while, was enacted in 1975, offered by a Democratic senator and passed by a Republican president. The Earned Income Tax Credit provides low-income Americans with a financial boost. As of the 2000 tax year, it's up to a maximum of $5,657 per year per family. This is actually quite a help to a lot of low-income families, as you may know, and it is a reward for work. It can really make all the difference in helping low-income families who are trying to get ahead. As I mentioned, it was at the beginning and remains a bipartisan effort and a program that's been supported by Republican and Democratic presidents and Congresses since its inception. Increasing the use of the EITC, the Child Tax Credit, or the CTC, and other tax credit is among the most popular and effective strategies rural communities use to promote family economic success. And tax preparation efforts are fairly easy to get yourself going. There are some moving parts, and we have some help for you, as our guests will show you. And they're really energizing. People in the community can really get behind them, and there are great results. As you'll see from our presenters, there are some real effects on the ground to the Earned Income Tax Credit. Rural organizations and groups can use it to promote savings among low-income families. At its core, this is one of it helps people keep their money. But the Earned Income Tax Credit can also help families grow their assets. We're going to cover a few topics here today. Okay, first of all, our presenters will give you an introduction to the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. We'll also provide you with some updates for the coming tax season in EITC and CTC. We'll go through with you the basic components of some successful tax preparation efforts, and we'll also give you a view into the IRS SPEC program and some of the other resources that are available to you. Okay, so some basic notes on participation, just take care of some administrative matters here. Okay, everyone other than our presenters for now is on mute. The webinar administrator has you all on mute, and so if you have babies crying or your dog is barking or got your sink going, we won't hear that. It won't disturb everyone else on the call. Clarifying questions. Okay. There's a little webinar control panel to the right of your screen. During the presentations, if any of the presenters say anything that you just don't get, don't understand, please type in your question and send it. It says I will see the questions, but it's actually my colleague Elsa Noterman who will see the questions and try to find the right time to pose them. For larger questions, your more cosmic questions about EITC in general, just note that at the end of our presentations, during the last half hour or so of this webinar, we'll have time for you to ask questions. Again, you can raise your hand by clicking on the little hand icon in your control panel. We'll see it, and we'll call on people in turn. We'll unmute you so that you can go ahead and ask your question. And if you don't really want to speak, there is the questions box on the lower part of your control panel, and you can pose your questions there as well. If you have technical problems, please use the questions box if you're having some small technical problem or just want to know how to do something. Elsa will be keeping an eye out and we'll try to address your problem. If you have a really bad problem, go ahead and email Elsa at elsa.enactment Noterman, Elsa.Noterman, at aspeninst, ASPENINST.org, or you can even call her at 202-736-5833. She is standing by. Thank you very much, Elsa. Okay, so today's presenters, in addition to me, we have John Molinaro, who's our co-director here at the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group. I have my friend Karen Heisler, who's the Director of Asset Development at Rural Dynamics in Great Falls, Montana. Ken Fredette, who is the Marketing and Development Director at Lakes and Prairies Community Action Partnership up in Moorhead, Minnesota. Vignetta Akins, who's a Youth Coordinator at Rural School and Community Trust and in East Iberville, Louisiana. And we have from the IRS, Becky Harrow. We don't have a picture of her, she's shy. But with no further ado, let me talk a little bit about today's objectives, and we'll do about the RuFES framework, and then we'll turn you over to John. So at the end of today's EITC webinar, we want you to have 5 different things in hand. 1, we want you to have a better understanding of the EITC and CTC. 2, we'd like you to be aware of some of the updated policies and the new opportunities that have been put in place for the coming tax season. 3, we'd like you to hear about a couple of inspiring, innovative models of EITC programs around the country. I think you'll see that Ken and Vignetta have programs that do things well and do things in an interesting way, and hopefully provide you with some models that you can look at as you seek to develop your own program. 4, we'd like you to have an idea of how your organization might launch or expand its own successful EITC campaign. And lastly, we want you to be aware of the IRS SPEC program and some of the other resources that are available to help organizations that, again, are looking to launch or expand their own tax assistance program. Now, a lot of the work that we do here with these webinars, all of the work we do is based on these webinars is based on the RuFES framework. That is Earn It, which means working families earn a living that allows them to survive, thrive, and raise their children in their community. Keep It, working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. And lastly, Grow It, working families accumulate and maintain assets that gain value and advance family and community prosperity over time. Earn It, Keep It, and Grow It. It largely being funds. Okay, so today's framework, as I mentioned earlier, EITC is at its core a Keep It strategy, helping working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. The Earn It, Keep It, Grow It framework actually has about 30 family-focused goals. 3 of them we will target today. 1 is helping families use reasonably priced services, accounts, and products for their savings, checking, and other financial transactions. 2 is helping families file tax returns on an annual basis. And 3, helping families secure all the tax benefits for which they qualify, starting with those that reward work, such as our topics for today, the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. Now, to tell you a little bit more about the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, John Molinaro. John?
Thanks very much, Renee. I very much appreciate having everybody on the call. I know with some of you, what I'm about to go over is fairly basic, but some of you are always on calls like this. Some of you are always newbies to the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit. So I'm going to go over some basics just to make sure everybody has some grounding as we go forward. So what is the Earned Income Tax Credit? It's a refundable federal tax credit that helps low-income working families by financially rewarding work. It was first enacted in 1975 under President Gerald Ford, and this is one of the very few things that has really brought bipartisan support, as Renee mentioned. Every subsequent administration has seen this renewed or expanded with broad bipartisan support. Earned Income Tax Credit is actually the largest anti-poverty program in America. It's far larger than the federal welfare program, which the federal government calls TANF, and you may call something different in your state. And it's a very underutilized rural development opportunity. Millions and millions of dollars are left on the table every year that if they were collected by the people in your community for who qualify for this tax credit, would rotate in your local economy, would help strengthen the businesses in your community, would make your communities stronger and more vital places. So how does the Earned Income Tax Credit work? It's really fairly simple. It's a credit that's available to families who have children or who don't have children, although there's a lot more available for those with children than those without. It tops out at a credit of about $5,600 for a two-parent family with 3 or more children that earn a family earning somewhere in that $12,000 to $18,000 per year range. But it doesn't phase out for a two-parent family until the family income exceeds $48,000 a year. That means if just one of those parents is working outside of the home, they could be earning $24 or nearly $24 an hour and still qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit. So this isn't just for the poorest of the poor. Many, many middle-income, hard-working families qualify for the credit. Another really cool thing about the credit is that it's refundable. That means even if a family doesn't pay any taxes, they can still claim the Earned Income Tax Credit. So it's not limited to the amount of taxes they paid in like some other federal tax benefits. And another really neat thing is that if a family hasn't collected what's due to them in the past, you can go back and amend or file tax returns for 3 years, and in doing that, you can collect that Earned Income Tax Credit from those previous periods that they didn't collect it from. So that can make for a really, really, really big check. I've seen some cases where someone didn't know they had the Earned Income Tax Credit due, where they've gotten $10,000 or $12,000 the first time they filed because they went back and filed for 2 years that they hadn't filed in. So what difference does the Earned Income Tax Credit make? Well, it lifts at least 5 million people out of poverty every year, half of those being children. It makes work more lucrative than welfare for millions of families. It helps low-wage full-time workers earn enough to meet their basic needs. And it pumps billions of dollars into the economies of low-income communities, especially communities in rural areas where more families tend to qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit than in large metropolitan areas. So what's the child tax credit? Well, the child tax credit, like the Earned Income Tax Credit, is a refundable tax credit so that even those who owe no taxes can get a refund. It's worth up to $1,000 for each dependent child under the age of 17 who's a U.S. citizen or legal resident alien living in the U.S. And the reason we're talking about the child tax credit here as well as the Earned Income Tax Credit is that at least 1 in 4 qualifying families fails to claim the EITC, and those who fail to claim the EITC also generally fail to claim the child tax credit, and many, many of those families are rural. So when they leave these dollars on the table, there are literally billions of dollars that go unclaimed. The fact that these dollars are unclaimed not only hurts the families, they hurt the communities that they live in. And the additional income that families get from Earned Income Tax Credit can reduce dependence on other programs. That's why there's such broad bipartisan support for this program, because even those people who are very financially conservative can see that the Earned Income Tax Credit makes it less likely someone will need to receive or qualify to receive other kinds of benefits that that also cost the federal government money. It really rewards work. So why do some people miss out on the credit? Well, the big reason is because they don't apply. They don't apply because they don't file taxes. Perhaps their income is below the threshold that requires them to file a tax return, or they're avoiding the tax man. Sometimes they don't apply because they don't know about the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit. So not knowing about it, not knowing they have money coming back might lead someone to just simply not filing a return, or if they don't know about it, they might file a simple return and not claim it. Sometimes they fear they owe taxes, or that they're going to owe taxes, and so they don't file a return. Some families have language barriers, and some may incorrectly fear that they'll lose eligibility for other benefits, or that it will cost them more in other benefits than they receive. None of those things is, and that's certainly not generally a true thing. Other things that get in the way to earned income tax credit and to rural earned income tax credit programs are distance and transportation barriers. So it can be harder to run a program in a rural area. It can be harder for people to get to the programs. Lack of broadband access. For earned income tax credit programs to work, you need to be able to connect to the IRS websites, at least to transmit data. So having a reliable internet connection is something that has to happen as part of these programs, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen while the client is working with a volunteer. Finding qualified staff. Sometimes that can be hard to do in rural areas. And marketing challenges can be pretty big in rural areas because no one media source is likely to get to as many people as you can in a metropolitan area.
Thank you very much, John. I hope folks feel like they get a grasp on EITC and CTC 101. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Karen Heiser in Great Falls, Montana, to talk to us a little bit about what's new this tax season. Karen, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can. Okay.
Great.
Your turn.
I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak today to all of you, and I just want to let you know briefly, Rural Dynamics is a 40-year-old nonprofit organization that provides programs and develops partnerships to help youth, individuals, and families achieve economic independence. And we are also the lead organization for Tax Help Montana, a coalition that provides VITA sites to over 60 communities across the state of Montana, including 6 tribal communities. So we're very knowledgeable about VITA sites and credits in rural areas. So what's new this tax season? First of all, the advance payment of the EITC will be eliminated in the 2011 year. So people who previously filed with their employer to receive some of their earned income tax credit in advance will no longer be able to do that after this tax season. There also have been some adjustments in the income for people who file the earned income tax, and those are listed on your screen, ranging from $13,460 for someone with no qualifying children to $43,000 or $48,000 if you're married filing jointly if you have 3 or more qualifying children. In the 2010 tax year, the credit will go up just a little bit. As you saw in a previous slide, it was 56, I believe 48 last year. It will go up to 56.66 if you have 3 or more qualifying children for the 2010 tax season. Down to 457 will be the maximum you can receive if you have no qualifying children. So other changes of who can claim, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was in act last tax season and continues to be for this tax season, provides a temporary increase in earned income tax credit and expands the credit for workers with 3 or more qualifying children. So there is a note that people need to know if you're working with clients, that during the 2011 tax season, if some of these tax extenders and tax policy are not brought over or kept for the 2011 tax season, people's checks will change in January of 2011. So that bump that people saw of $10, $15, $20 a paycheck in 2009 that they probably don't even remember they got is going to go away, and people are going to question that, and so people need to know why their checks are going down. As always, the investment income must be less than $3,100, and the maximum advance EITC, which again will no longer be in effect in 2011, but they could have received it for 2010, is $1,830. So the child tax credit is another credit that John just explained, and taxpayers who cannot take the full advantage of the child tax credit because their credit is more than their tax liability may receive a payment for some of or all of that credit this year that was not used to offset their taxes. So for example, if they got $1,000 for the child tax credit, but their tax liability was only $600, before the $400 just went away, and this year part of that may come back as a refundable credit, just like the earned income tax credit, which means that taxpayers may receive the refund even if they don't owe any tax. The ERA changes also reduce the minimum earned income amount used to calculate the additional child tax credit to $3,000. It used to be $12,550, so that is bringing in a lot of people, millions of people this year and last year that were able to get that child tax credit that made between $3,000 and $12,550 that weren't able to get that before. So people who don't have, again, it's important to note that people who may not have a filing requirement may still get money back if they file their taxes. So it shouldn't really be about whether they have a filing requirement. It should be about whether they're going to get a tax credit back. A couple changes that people will see rumblings about this year is, first of all, the IRS has removed the debt indicator, which will impact the availability of refund anticipation loans. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of low-income people do not get refund anticipation loans because they want their money the next day. What happens is they go into a tax preparation place and they get their taxes done, and the person says that's $150, and that person does not have $150 to pay for the service. So they're forced into taking a refund anticipation loan so that the cost of the tax preparation can come out and the remainder will be given to the client. Without that debt indicator, most banks have already indicated they're backing out of doing refund anticipation loans. So we're not sure what's going to happen with the product or what other products might crop up because of the removal of the debt indicator. Also this year, paid tax return preparers are subject to registration testing and continuing education. Before, anybody could hang out a shingle and say they could prepare taxes, and now they have to register and test before they can do that. Also, there is a new pilot that is being done in conjunction with the IRS, National Community Tax Coalition, and CFED that will pilot 12 organizations across the nation that will enable them to do Schedule C tax returns for people who go to VITA sites. Before, these VITA sites, for the most part, were not serving self-employed individuals, but a lot, especially in rural areas, a lot of our clients have a small business. They may be working full-time but not able to make ends meet, so they might have a little Avon business on the side, or a little Pampered Chef, or they're selling at the farmer's market. And some of those things, especially in tribal and rural communities, there's a lot of people that are making ends meet that way, and that earned income can help them get additional earned income tax if they claim it. Sometimes more than they would have gotten if they would have just not claimed the money on their tax return. So it's important. It's an important initiative, and hopefully by next year all VITA sites will be able to prepare Schedule Cs if they're able to get the training and testing. The reason these are of particular relevance to rural programs is, as John already said, 20 to 25% of individuals qualify but do not receive the earned income tax credit. This is millions and millions of dollars each year that people could be getting in their pocket, low-income people that need this money that aren't receiving it because they either don't have a filing requirement, so they're not filing it, or they're filing their income tax incorrectly. So it's very important to do EITC outreach to try to get as many of those dollars into our communities and into the pockets of low-income people as we can. Again, the elimination of the debt indicator may keep people from filing or from getting refund anticipation loans, or from filing because they don't know how they're going to pay for it. So that's something we need to look at this year, and we need to be aware of products that are going to crop up that may be even more predatory for clients because the RALs have gone away. And again, as I said before, study is really important in rural and Native communities. A lot of people and a lot of employers even are paying people with 1099s. And so that change from a W-2 employee to a 1099 employee is a teachable moment that we can help these people understand the differences, make sure they're collecting the right information so that when they're at the tax site and getting their taxes done, they have all the appropriate information and can get the most earned income credit and child tax credit back as we can possibly get them. Some resources that you can go to for additional information is, of course, the IRS website. The National Community Tax Coalition is a coalition of organizations across the country. They provide a lot of trainings and technical assistance in all areas of EITC tax credit outreach, VITA sites, as well as have a great newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks, and you can go to their website. The EITC platform is a great place to get training and information, and then Center on Budget and Policy Priorities is another place that you can get specific information on how much EITC is brought back to your community by zip code. I believe my contact information is next. If you're wanting any advice on starting sites or need any technical information, we're here to help. So feel free to shoot me an email, and we'll be happy to help you.
Karen, thank you very much for sharing that information. Between what John has said and Karen has said, one of the questions that I'm sure is coming up to folks is, boy, how do I keep track of all this information? We will have both the presentation posted on the CSG website by later today or first thing tomorrow for sure. We will also have a sheet of resources, including the ones that Karen has mentioned here for folks to go back and use and refer to. So please don't fret. Again, thank you very much, Karen. Next, I'd like to go to Ken Fredette up in Moorhead, Minnesota. Ken, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. So Ken is going to talk to you a little bit about the specific program that he's running up there in Minnesota, and hopefully this will provide you with some hints. Your turn, Ken.
Okay. Good afternoon. Really pleased to be here today. I'm with Lakes and Prairies Community Action Partnership. There's about 28 Community Action Partnership organizations in Minnesota. We began with the EITC outreach efforts in 2004, and we did that with a lot of help from RuFES, the West Central Initiative Foundation, and that connection brought us to a 2-year EITC awareness project that was funded by the National Community Tax Coalition and the West Central Initiative. And as we were doing that, the EITC outreach quickly led us to opening a VITA site in January 2005 for the 2004 tax year. Okay, what was the catalyst that encouraged us to do this? Part of our studies really showed that EITC awareness was very low, especially in the rural areas. And we had Brookings Institute and IRS data that indicated as high as 25% were not accessing the EITC, and again, especially in rural communities. We also had information that strongly indicated there was good potential for us to strengthen local communities and local economies, because with that money that gets returned back into the local community, it gets spent over and over, which has a tremendous effect. And our own data showed that the families were facing challenges and missing opportunities just because they didn't know about it. They couldn't take it to some next level. Well, some of the challenges and missed opportunities, it was quite frequent that we heard they thought they would lose other benefits. Another missed opportunity for those that especially were, for instance, on the welfare or TANF program, they didn't quite see a positive connection or even an awareness of how that linked to being moved out of poverty. And we kept on seeing a growing increase in the cost of tax preparation services. Okay. You know, we also learned that throughout this time and with surveys that paying off debt, you know, was the most likely use of the EITC refund. And the interesting, I think, rural information we found out was that people in the very smaller rural communities were more likely to use their refund to make house payments or rent, pay utility bills, and to pay for medical expenses. On the other hand, people in the cities often maybe were paying off credit card debt. And again, as I mentioned, the growing high cost of tax preparation, we were seeing tremendous inconsistency, and we were seeing growing refund anticipation loans. And even last week, I got a mailing that said something about the EITC and suggested that people could buy a car now, and the car company would estimate what they'd be getting back in January or February. So that type of anticipation is really not good for anyone we're working with. And finally, we found that it really takes a whole community, and that local government, maybe these mayors and city council members and others, they heard about the EITC at League of City or county events, but they needed a partner, somebody that could help carry that through and include them in it. From there, it was clear to us that we needed a big EITC kickoff event, that we could take everyone to that next level. I'm just sharing with you a few pictures that I'll describe. The one on the left, there's John Molinaro, who was part of this whole process back in 2004 and 5 at our first kickoff event. That kickoff event brought in about 135 people, I believe, representing all sides of the community, other helping agencies, faith-based groups, government leaders. And the picture up on the top in the dead center was actually the Annie Casey FES Children Do Well When Families Do Well, and Families Do Better When They Live in Supportive Communities. That was really our catalyst. And what we did was we went to a mall, and with the IRS helping us out, we let people come there and find out if they might be eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit. And it was a very busy time. Down below, one of our Head Start parents was one of those people who received the $10,000 refund that radically changed the life of her and her family. She's now one of the board members of our Community Action Agency. And up on the right, we really involved the Chamber of Commerce. We wanted businesses to recognize the benefit to them. The benefit to, for instance, a landlord would be very happy to get rent because the EITC refund was there. A utility company would be happy to get paid. Grocery stores would be happy to have people buying food. That was our major emphasis to the business community. And these were all the partners, because we certainly didn't do it alone. Minnesota Community Action Partnership for the whole state and University of Minnesota Extension did workshops across the state. Obviously Annie Casey, and up on the right corner you see that map of the 9-county area of West Central Initiative, where 4 community action agencies collaborated and worked together along with a tribal entity to expand it to this whole area, probably larger than the size of Connecticut. Accountability Minnesota was a statewide VITA site, and of course the National Community Tax Coalition, and 3 of our Community Action Partnership partners. Okay. When we opened up the VITA sites, it helped us to see the potential for creating opportunities for helping households keep their money and then to move forward and build assets. So what we tried to do was strike a balance in our efforts between EITC outreach of a general nature, you know, sort of the idea, are you eligible for the earned income tax credit? And the other side of it was specifically focused on family economic success or rural family economic success strategies that are encompassed by the earn it, keep it, and grow it focus areas that were brought up earlier. And what having the sites did was, first of all, in terms of EITC awareness, it gave us a place to send people where they wouldn't have refund anticipation loans and where they could get their taxes done for free. We were able to create materials then that would also focus on financial literacy services, on savings, on the benefits of using some of the refund to pay down high interest loans, and the difference that would make. For example, we took a regular credit card with, say, a $2,000 debt and what monthly payments were, and we showed what would happen if you just took $1,000 and put it to that debt, that it would knock off 10, 15, or 20 years of payments. We focused on the concept that the EITC rewards work, and you know, I thought we were focusing on it real well until one day we had this workshop with people in the workforce center. And we were talking to about 20 TANF people about to get off that program, and most of them had 2 or 3 children, and a lot of them talked about they didn't want to take a minimum wage job. They could get higher pay if they just waited a bit longer. And in fact, they often did. It might have taken 4, 6, or 8 months. Well, we were able to point out in that situation that they missed 4, 6, or 8 months of minimum wage income, and they ended up the year with, say, $6,000 or $7,000 at $9 an hour, where they could have ended up with $16,000 or $18,000 with minimum wage and EITC and more for child tax credit. So we really tried to show that the EITC rewards work and that they would be rewarded. And finally, we tried to link people to benefits and services and asset building IDA programs. Okay, so the overall breakdown was outreach, having a tax site, benefits assistance. I mean, that was finding out whether they might be eligible for energy assistance or food support, and a number of other programs. We referred people to other programs and services. We greatly expanded our financial literacy efforts, and our asset development opportunities each year have been filled to capacity since we started working with this. And we do all of this. We have agency staff who oversee the operation, but we have tax site operations that are almost 100% volunteer-led, and those volunteers are from the community, from other helping agencies, and volunteers from the general population as well as the college. So that's made a big difference in having 2 or 3 areas and being able to be open more days, and again, we're expanding this year. Okay. The rural outreach, some of the main components, We're going to expand this year with more expanded mobile services. Rural areas, small towns, populations 200, 400, 600. We can now get out there with a laptop, a wireless access, wireless printer, and we can work doing the tax services, as well as we can try to use libraries and work with other helping agencies in those various small towns. We're also very fortunate to have our Head Start program that operates in 7 communities to give us access to the families and locations, again, throughout the area. Because we collaborate and work in partnership with West Central Minnesota Region, that 9-county area, and the West Central Initiative, which has funded this 9-county RuFES model to do all the things I've just mentioned, we've been able to really build capacity across the area. Each organization does a little bit of its own thing, but all work toward the same goals of, are we linking people to benefits? Are we getting the word out? And are we expanding IDA opportunities? And we do this also by meeting regularly as part of a FES asset team, which is hosted by the West Central Initiative. Okay. Just a little bit about outreach and messaging. And one of the things I think that can help is every year it's not just the same message, which we should be using, am I eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit, but maybe selecting an emerging demographic. I think this year, for instance, the 2 emerging demographics are those who are newly unemployed. In other words, somebody who may have lost a job last June or August or October, and now be eligible if there's a spouse that's working where they would not have been eligible at any time in their life prior to this recent downturn in the economy. And then there is a tremendous growth of adults going back to school, and many of these adults have families, and that's lowering their income in a lot of cases, but they need that to move forward. And again, that becomes an emerging market to reach out to. It's a lot better to have the help of other helping agencies and community partners. They'll get that word out, and some of our strongest support has come from city, county, social service, and workforce centers. And we've really had a lot of help with spokespeople. We need to go back and recultivate that some more, because the bottom line of it all is word of mouth is going to be one of your biggest promos, no matter how much material or how many posters you put out. Our next bullet here says start early. We've already spoken to, for instance, all the teachers in all of our Head Start classrooms in 2 counties. Those parents now know that we're going to have asset opportunities, or it's time to think about opening a savings account or using our free tax service. And to do all this, we don't have to create a bunch of new resources, because there are excellent ones. All the ones that have been cited, I've also listed here. And I mentioned at the very bottom that for the localized rural programs, the Northwest Area Foundation produced they called it a simplified EITC community campaign kit, and it really is geared to small rural communities.
Ken, I think everyone knows what the IRS is, but I think it might be worthwhile for you to let everyone know what those 3 other acronyms are at the beginning.
I'll be glad to. The Annie E. Casey Foundation, the National Community Tax Coalition, the National Women's Law Center, and the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I won't be discussing this too much, except this is a chart showing that since we started, we've grown to almost $5 million in 2,500 filings for low and moderate income, and quite honestly, primarily low income individuals and families. And as part of the 9-county collaborative, worked with West Central Initiative. In 2008, they were able to report that EITC had increased by $5 million in the 9-county region since we all first began, and I think it's going to grow as high as $8 million when we look into next April and the year after.
Yeah, the one thing to interrupt just to note is just letting folks realize that Ken's group did not necessarily start off as a huge program. You just look at the growth from the number of filings they did in 2004 and where they are in 2009.
Okay, some of that growth also, I'm just noticing a portion of the slide here, some of that growth has most recently resulted in a 1,000% increase in the number of financial literacy workshop participants, from 15 5 years ago to more than 150 this last year. We've been, the second box right down below that, the Family Economic Success Council with West Central Initiative has kept all of us together and incented our projects to work in all those areas of EITC awareness and outreach, bridge to benefits evaluations, which is a benefits calculator approach to what people may be eligible for, tax site services, our VITA sites, and TCE sites. Now TCE is, you may know that as the AARP sites, and asset development and financial literacy. We measure each of these things every year across the 9-county area and across the 4 caps. The last chart to your right there, certainly volunteer hours have grown from going back to just 2006, 187 hours of volunteer help, to now what is 630 hours in this last year, 2009. We've linked a lot of families to other services, 321 families, and we've had this one project with Concordia College where 16 seniors came in, social work majors, and brought people through that benefits calculator survey, which enabled us to link with others, other helping agencies, and our own programs. This here is our last slide, talking about rural challenges and opportunities. It's become easier, certainly, with Wi-Fi, with faster computers, and other access opportunities. But we still have to reach out to those communities even when we're not doing the VITA tax site preparation and promoting the EITC and going against refund anticipation loans. It's truly a devastating thing for a lot of low-income families. And we have to recognize that technology changes means that more people are purchasing or downloading paid software programs, and we quite honestly promote that if you're able to. Many people qualify to go onto the irs.gov website and have their taxes done there. So we think our impact and all the impact of all the projects across the country is a little bit unrecognized to the extent that many other places benefit. Many other families that we don't get to record, they remember to ask the person preparing their taxes, am I eligible? They think about it and say, no, let's not use that refund anticipation loan. It's a good service. And the last bullet I have there I'd like to mention is where it says TCE sites. I'm talking about AARP tax sites. The larger ones do families low and moderate income. And so, for instance, in the first few years that we were building, we often had more people calling in for appointments than we could handle. And in some communities, we were able to say, well, go to the AARP tax site. They do families too. And that let us grow, but also work with the other families. And there's the contact information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. I think that will provide folks with a very strong model of how a effective EITC, CTC program can work. I want to move on to our next presenter, Vignetta Akins from Louisiana. Vignetta, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, a little louder. We can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you perfectly well now. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you to let us know a little bit about your program.
Okay. My name is Vignetta Akins, and I'm the youth coordinator for Rural School and Community Trust. And we run two VITA centers. One is in East Iberville, Louisiana, and one is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Our program started approximately 3 years ago, and it was the brainchild of a St. Helena sophomore student. She was providing tax assistance for a few of the elderly individuals in her community, and she wanted to do it on a larger scale. So she contacted rural schools, and at that time we were giving out little grants, and so she had gotten one. And so that's how it all started. Our first site was in Greensburg, Louisiana, which was at the St. Helena High School. And from there we moved to St. Gabriel, Louisiana, which is housing the East Iberville High School Tax Center. And now we also have a site that is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that's at a local church, Belfair Baptist Church. What we do is basically the same as some of the other VITA sites. Our program targets the low-income and elderly individuals in the surrounding community that we're in. As I stated before, our two VITA sites is East Iberville High School and the Belfair Baptist Church. Our sites are open 4 days a week, and these sites are run by high school students. There are also adults to monitor and check the work of the students. The sites are run in the afternoons between the hours of like 3 to 5 or 5 to 7, and they're open on weekends, alternating weekends, like every other Saturday. But in the month of April, we open almost every weekend to get those last-minute tax preparers in to get their taxes done. Our unique staffing approach is that our EITC program is completely run by students. The students are the greeters, the tax preparers, and the quality control individuals. We have adults there who are there to supervise and to make sure things are run smoothly, but 100% of the work is done by the students. Students are the office managers. They keep the files intact and everything. Some of the challenges, we have two of them, and one that we're still dealing with is the difficulty getting the word out about our tax center. Because we're in such a rural area, it's really hard for individuals who live outside the area to come in because it's, as I say, it's in a rural area. But we try to get as much advertising out as much as we can by putting flyers on cars at, you know, the high school football games and things like that, church bulletins, in the newspaper, PTA meetings, flyers that go home to parents on the school's website or the church's billboards and things like that. So we try to get the word out as much as we can. We are partnered with United Way is one of our big helps in getting things out. We have a number, the 411 number that individuals can call and they can get information on different tax centers that are surrounding the area. Another one is the skepticism of students' abilities. The first year we had this program, a lot of adults were very skeptical about the ability that the students had to do their taxes. I mean, as adults, we all know how difficult and daunting the task is of doing taxes. And adults are just very weary about, can a student really do my taxes and can they do them right? And after the first year, a lot of the adults that came in were very surprised, and they were very thankful because, number one, they got out quick, and number two, they got all their money. So, you know, those two things helped in our next few years in getting our numbers up and returning customers. Our volunteers at the East Iberville site, we have 12 volunteers, 2 youth and 2 adults. The 2 adults include a high school teacher and myself. The one at Belfair, we have 10 volunteers, 6 youth and 4 adults. The 6 youth include youth that are in the church's youth group program, and the 4 adults and just me, myself, and a few other adults who come and supervise. Our youth also volunteered at the annual Super Tax Day, which is held at the Southern University Law Center, and we had a total of about 20 volunteers to go out and volunteer. The Super Tax Day is an event that we hold every year, and we just have taxes done in one central location where everybody comes and gets their taxes done, and it's just one big, huge VITA center. You have approximately 50 volunteers there who are doing taxes, and you know, we complete as much as between 250 and 300 taxes that day. 2009-2010 tax season, we had a total of 452 tax returns that were prepared between the 2 sites and the involvement that we had in Super Tax Day. As you can see, at Belfair, we prepared 80 taxes, and 70 tax returns were accepted. At East Iberville High School, we prepared 73, and 69 were accepted. Super Tax Day, we prepared approximately 299, and 250 of those tax returns were accepted. When you talk about tax returns being accepted compared to the tax returns that were prepared, a lot of tax returns get rejected. And they're rejected, the main 3 reasons that some are rejected is because of Social Security numbers that are inaccurate, W-2 inaccuracies on W-2 forms, dependent inaccuracies. For instance, if you know a parent comes in and claims a child, and then another parent comes in later and claims the same child, then we have problems. You know, then the tax return will get rejected, and then those individuals, you know, either have to do a paper return or somebody can't claim the child. In other instances, you know, we try to call each tax return that we do get back that's rejected, we try to call the individual to let them know that it has been rejected and let them know what the error was on it, and if they would like to fix it or if they would like to go somewhere else to get it done. Some, you know, opt to get it fixed, and some opt to go elsewhere, and then some we just can't get in contact with because we have the wrong telephone number. Either it's been disconnected or nobody has returned our calls. The total amount of refunds for our tax center, both of them last year, was approximately $170,000. For Belfair Baptist Church, it was about $86,000, and East Iberville High School, about the same, $86,000, $87,000. Our partnerships is the Belfair Baptist Church, the East Iberville High School, the Louisiana Department of Transportation, who has a credit union, and they allow us to, they have a program where they go out and sponsor student-run credit unions. And the credit union is run by students and faculty and individuals can deposit money into savings and checking accounts. They can open up their own checking or savings account. There are no withdrawals done at this credit union, but it's kind of a first step in teaching kids how to save and how to use a checking account. And also the IRS. The IRS provides software, provides training materials, provides handouts about the EITC, child tax credit, and other credits that are available, and they provide assistance throughout the tax season. And this is my contact information. We have the national office, which is in Arlington, Virginia, and we also have the capacity building program office, which I am under, which is housed in Henderson, North Carolina. But either 2 numbers or the email address, you can contact me to get more information about our program.
Thank you very much, Vignetta. Very much appreciated. I'm gathering we're having a little bit of trouble with Becky Harrell, who's our IRS spec person. Becky, are you there? Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take questions. If need be, towards the end, I will present some of the information. But I think what's a good idea is for us to take some questions. Let's see. Elsa, can you, okay, here we had one question actually for Ken. What happens to unclaimed EITC money?
Unclaimed EITC money just stays in the federal government bank. It never gets to anyone.
And Ken, is there a, and that's right. So this is what we're talking about. It's sort of a tool that goes unused. As John mentioned, and as Karen also mentioned, there's about 20 to 25% of potential EITC filers who don't file, and that means that there's money that doesn't come back to the communities. A large percentage of the money that is refunded to these low and moderate income filers is spent right there. They're not going on vacation to Saint-Tropez. So they're going to be there in rural Minnesota and rural Louisiana spending their money at home, feeding the local economy. Again, as John mentioned, that's what sort of makes it something that Republicans and Democrats and independents alike all are in favor of continuing. Another question that we have here is, Ken, have you seen a good toolkit for a mobile VITA tax service that provides financial literacy and asset building opportunity education?
No, I haven't, Renee. What's happened is that we've taken some of the programs we offer internally, and then we have staff that go out and communicate those programs and services across the counties.
John, are you aware of any programs that take their VITA sites on the road?
There are a lot of programs that take their VITA sites on the road, Renee.
We do.
I am afraid that we'd have to track down some specific examples here, but it's not at all unusual for a program to load the. There are two versions of the tax software that the IRS provides. One version that runs on the local machine, and one version that connects through the internet. When you do a mobile program in a rural area, you usually use the version that loads on the local machine. Then somebody goes out and does the tax returns. They come back to a central location where they've got an internet connection, and at that central location, then they transmit the files to the IRS. So it's a little bit more trouble to do, and you generally need laptop computers, but it doesn't take the newest, latest, and greatest laptop computers to do this. So you can do this with computers that might be retiring from a college or retiring from a business because they're just not up to date enough to run the high-end applications, but they'll work fine for running the tax software.
Real quickly, Karen, I think I heard you saying that you do this? I heard somebody say we do.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, this is Karen again at Tax Help Montana. We do actually about half of our sites are mobile tax clinics where we go to very small communities, and just what John was saying, we take 10 computers and a volunteer or some volunteers, and you don't necessarily even have to have the computers if you have access to computers with internet, because if you have internet access, you can get onto TaxWise online. So there is some information on the CFED.org website under their Small Business Tax Initiative on how to do mobile sites. Or again, you can contact me and I'd be more than happy to connect you into some resources.
Thank you for that. Hey, I think we do have Becky Harrell on the line. Becky, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Wonderful. So I'm going to have you give us a few minutes on what you all do there at IRS Spec.
All right. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm hoping to share some information for everyone. I work in the organization of the IRS known as SPAC. That stands for Stakeholder Partnerships, Education, and Communication. We've been organized and in existence for 10 years. It did originally evolve from a realization that it's a challenge for the IRS to be able to get our messages out to the public and then to be heard. Taxpayers are more comfortable receiving our messages from trusted local organizations. Our services primarily focus on low-income customers, the elderly, limited English proficient speaking persons, persons with disabilities, and families that live in rural areas. Our services include tax education, outreach, free tax preparation services, and links to partners engaged in financial education and asset building opportunities. Our staff has cultivated partnerships with thousands of organizations across the country, like financial institutions or nonprofit organizations, government offices, and many various community groups. SPEC partners have joined forces with local communities, forming networks or community-based organizations, or coalitions they're sometimes called. SPEC is involved with almost 400 different of these networks, ranging from very small, with a few organizations, and to very large ones where there's 60 or more organizations that all work together to improve communities. Many of these coalitions do span rural areas, and they too are wanting to expand services to reach into additional rural areas. SPEC's mission involves ensuring that all of our focused taxpayers have the knowledge and capability to claim all the credits and deductions they may be entitled to by filing a tax return. The ultimate hope is for the taxpayers to also attain financial success. All right. In January of 2009, we launched an effort to expand services into the underserved geographic rural areas of the country. Our stats indicate that although the percentage of low-income residents per capita is higher in rural areas, the coverage rates, or the number of low-income returns versus the number of low-income returns filed, are actually lower. And that's there because, as we all know, there are so many challenges to providing services and reaching these folks that are living in rural areas. I know you all are very familiar with some of these challenges, like traveling to remote areas, the weather, lack of internet capabilities, but we are working to try to overcome some of them. Some are listed on this slide here. Next slide. SPEC has addressed some of these challenges by expanding the policy and the guidance for hosting VITA sites in rural areas. In a nutshell, it allows for a third-party intermediary who may be located in a rural location to partner with a traditional site, usually located in a more urban area, and together they can file taxpayers' returns. Many partners already have become very creative and use some great models in order to get tax returns prepared for rural residents. SPEC has 47 territories. Our territory managers and the staff of tax consultants, which totals about 650, work within the communities all across the United States to provide services. So remember, yes, the IRS is here to help. Taxpayers can also obtain more assistance at any of our 400 taxpayer assistance offices throughout the country. We've been able to award funds to offset the expenses incurred to host a VITA site. These awards are given to organizations to reach underserved populations, increase returns filed electronically, and to encourage organizations to partner and work together within communities. The statistics on the VITA grant for 2009 show that 147 organizations were awarded funding to host VITA sites. Applications have been submitted for the upcoming 2011 filing year, but the awardees haven't been announced yet. So even though this year's application deadline is expired, please remember to apply next year. SPEC will provide free marketing materials, including news articles and marketing products that can be made customizable. We have a listserv that you can join to get newsworthy notifications that post on our outreach corner at irs.gov, and it's specifically for our partners to use. Make your job easier. Our printed products, both EITC and other products, are available to our partners for free, so they can be passed on to your clients and other folks. Tax consultants, our staff working in the local offices, can provide outreach seminars and training at your location. So what is new for 2011? We have opportunities at tax time for taxpayers to begin their savings plan with their tax refunds. We're currently soliciting. The savings bonds this year have been increased. Series I, U.S. Series I savings bonds, will now be able to be requested directly on the tax return, and not only this year be allowed to claim a beneficiary, an additional beneficiary other than the taxpayer and the return of record. So that's going to be new for this year. We are currently soliciting more people to join our Certifying Acceptance Agent program, which will save money for taxpayers who need to secure an ITIN or an individual taxpayer identification number. I'm most excited about our release of a new product. It's going to be a DVD. It's from our partners. Our partners are talking and hosting this DVD, and they're going to be talking and sharing their practices and strategies using the unique models that they have used to reach taxpayers in rural areas. We expect this DVD will be available by the end of November, so I please want you to stay tuned for more information. Our contact information is here on this page, irs.gov. There's a box at the top right. You can keyword search for a lot of items. If you go to Community Network, it'll give you a lot of the tools that you are looking for to provide work to your communities, to provide education, free tax prep, and financial education and asset building. And as I mentioned, you can sign up for the listserv, for the outreach corner, and if you have questions, want to reach someone in your location, you may send an email to partner@irs.gov or call the toll-free number listed there.
No, go ahead, Becky.
No, that's all. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I appreciate being able to speak here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky. That's a lot of great information, and again, we will take this information that Becky has offered, and we will have a resource page and the link to that will be sent to all of you who have participated on this call, and actually our entire network. And it's a little bit of a mindset change. I know that even for myself, when Becky called me and I saw IRS on my phone, I panicked. But you guys have to know that IRS in many ways can be our friend, particularly with respect to EITC and CTC in helping us bring funds into our communities. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I can get the technology work correctly for me, is take a few questions. If you have a question, there should be a place for you towards the bottom of your screen where you can raise your hand and ask questions. Let me see if anyone's got a question. Looking for hands. Okay, somebody has asked here about the benefits bank. Have any VITA sites blended their services with the benefits bank? Is anyone aware of that?
Renee, there are certainly a lot of sites that do some form of benefits checkup. I'm not sure specifically about the benefits bank. Somebody else might have an example of that. But many states have different forms of benefits access checkup sites, and it's becoming more and more common for, since much of the information that's needed to determine whether you qualify for benefits is already being collected at tax time, for sites to routinely run all of their folks through some kind of benefits checkup. I believe, Ken, you do that with all of the folks who go through your sites, don't you?
Yes, we do, and it's a perfect time. We have all that information, and we have enough volunteer staff to run somewhere with it.
Great.
This is Karen in Montana. There's also a tool called Bridge to Benefits in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming that screens for benefits. And there's one specifically geared towards elderly, or I shouldn't say elderly, people that, I think it's related to AARP, over 55, that screens for benefits. And I can get that website to you, Renee, for the resource guide. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to go to Keith Brewington, who has a question. Keith, can you speak? Go ahead. Let us know your question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can.
Well, we've lost partners since we started our coalition, and I was wondering if there might be some path or method as to obtaining new partners in our rural area to expand our EITC outreach and our VITA site.
Does anyone out there have any suggestions for Ken, any of our panelists?
Where are you located?
Where are you located, Keith?
Marlboro County, South Carolina.
In South Carolina?
Yes, Becky.
Yes, Marlboro County.
Okay. We have a territory manager in South Carolina, and if you write to partner@irs.gov, I will send you all their contact information, and they can see what's going on in that area. But with in regards to the rural, they might be able to link some partners together to help reach some of these areas that are unreachable by you and existing partners. So with that third party and our expansion of our guidance, we can now go outside of the box and work with a third-party mediator. So I will have them contact you, or I can have them give it to Renee, and we'll send that information to you, so you can contact them in your area. Okay?
Thank you, Becky. Keith, that answer your question? Great.
Yes.
Renee, let me share one other resource that might be helpful for Keith. Tax Help Carolinas, which is run through MDC. Lucy Gorham runs it. If you haven't connected, which I suspect you may have, but if you haven't connected with them, they've got a great range of resources that might be helpful to you.
Thank you, John. I believe I see one other hand down here that is raised. Steve Gray. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, what is your question?
We use a program called Tax Act, and I'm not promoting that necessarily, but what we do is we just assist. We're not a VITA site, and we're not a AARP site, and we started last year. It seems to work well for us, so we just sit there with 2 computer monitors and guide them through the process without doing their taxes for them. And A, I just wanted to share that, but B, I wanted to see if I could get a response from the panel if they felt that we're extending ourselves liability-wise. We don't offer any advice. We just kind of sit there and do the keystroke for them.
Karen, Vignetta, John, anybody?
I'm afraid I don't know the liability implications of trying to do this without participating in one of the formal programs. I would suspect that you would be a little bit safer, if not a lot safer, affiliating with VITA or one of the other similar programs.
And I do believe Karen may have mentioned in her bit that there are some requirements this year for preparers, correct, Karen?
Yeah, and if you don't, and Becky might be able to answer the question, if you don't fall within the VITA program, if you're not doing VITA, even if you're not charging, I think you would have to be registered. Isn't that correct, Becky?
Yes. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are. We can.
Okay. Yes, that's true, Karen. You must be working within the realm of the VITA program in order to qualify and fall under the Volunteer Act of 1977. So
right.
Even if it's free, yes, you would be responsible if you are not working within the realm of VITA.
Okay. Could I just clarify one point? That we do not prepare their taxes for them. We just put in the keystrokes using the tax program. So we're not advising them of anything other than what's on the screen. And I'm not sure that, I guess my question is there a real distinction between assisting and preparing? And if there is, should we be really concerned about that?
My answer is yes, and I know we have more information on our website. If you type in the keyword search, if you type in VITA and volunteer responsibilities, there's a lot of information on there that might clarify exactly what you're speaking of.
Okay. Are you the IRS lady?
I am.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure who I was hearing it from.
Yes.
Great. We've got time for
IRS.gov.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have time for 2 or 3 more questions. Actually, there's one that I think may be good for you here, Becky. What is the prepaid MoneyWise MasterCard? Could you explain that in a little bit more detail?
Yes, I can, and I meant to today as well. So thanks for the reminder. This upcoming year in 2011, during this filing season, those that work with the VITA program and use the TaxWise software will now have access to a prepaid card, and it's going to be issued with the refunds. With the refunds posted on them, and it's going to have a lot of advantages over other cards in the past, and it will be available for use at any VITA site this year, and it'll be for those folks that don't have traditional bank accounts.
Great, thank you. I'm noting one of the...
We're at the end of the night, late night.
One of our participants, Melanie, I don't know if you're there, Melanie Horner, had made mention of some of what they do in terms of reaching VITA sites that are unreachable by the road system because she's in Alaska. Melanie, are you there?
At the place, because it was a long ways through town to get to the clinic. So jump on the four-wheeler, and I drive her down to the clinic, and she had to have...
Oops. Okay. That didn't work as well. Okay, are there any other questions that are out there? Folks just need to reach down and raise their hand virtually. Oh, I see one. One moment here. Brian Moeller, are you there? Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
This is Becky.
Go ahead, Becky.
Was there a question? I did not hear the question.
No, didn't come through. I went to the caller and I didn't get through.
Okay.
Renee?
Go ahead.
Brian Muller's question is, how soon does the prepaid MasterCard receive their return?
Thank you.
The funds for the refund will be posted on that debit card within 7 to 10 days. And they're expecting it to be less than that, but this is the first season and the first trial, so it will probably be less than that.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Becky. Are there any more questions out there? Folks can raise their hands if there are more questions. Okay. All right. Well, folks, we are coming to an end. We'll come to an end 2 minutes early. And what I'd like to do is just to let you, first of all, thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar. And let everyone know we will send you a link that will provide you access to the handouts, to the resource page, and the recording of today's webinar. You can use it yourself, and you can also direct your friends and colleagues to the information that's been provided today. We thank you, as always, for joining us for these RuFES Refresher webinars, and there will be another one coming very soon. Please keep an eye on your email, and thank you again, and earn it, keep it, and grow it, folks. Thank you so much.